So most of you around here know my motto these days, which is 80% of the results for 20% of the money. Or in Setiastro Suite Pro, 80% of the results for 0% of the money. Because for the past year, Frank has accelerated and put out a fully capable and functional ASTRO processing program that in some levels exceeds, meets, and in some levels doesn't actually hit the target of PixInsight. But it doesn't hit that $500 price tag. I won't bullshit you. If you've got $500, PixInsight is still going to be the way to go. I think, even though it's daunting, especially for beginners, the drag and drop stuff and everything, it just all seems it's more refined. It works great. But if you're willing to jump in like I am currently right now and learn Setiastro Suite Pro, especially if you are like a C-Star user or you are on a very limited budget, then you are in for a super treat. So my name is Chad. This is the Easy Astro Images channel, and we are going to process an image today with Setiastro Suite Pro. So I've been using versions of Pro and the old suite for a while now. Now, I'm sure pretty much everybody and their brother uses at least one of Frank's scripts, whether they are in PixInsight or they have been imported over to Cyril. So we all are familiar with everything, and there's no content out there besides honestly what Frank makes because, well, probably because there's no RC Astro kickback revenue that could be tied to it. The videos take long. It's something new for people to learn. And, like, is there a monetization value there? All that stuff that we don't care about right here. And for that reason, if you care about supporting us and all that kind of stuff, you can join down below. You can do the buy me a coffee thing, send me a super chat, whatever you want to do, or just like and subscribe or comment on the video. So if you have things downloaded like Graxpert and StarNet, this whole thing will be a lot easier for you. I'm not going to go over how to install all of that stuff in this video, but I'll show you how you get it linked up inside of Setiastro Suite Pro. The other big thing is to make sure if you have a Windows machine that if you have an hour or two to spend and you have access to ChatGPT, whether it be on your desktop or your phone, you need to set this up to pull from the GitHub source code. So that way you don't have to delete, re-download, and reinstall a new update that Frank pushes out, which sometimes he might push out an update once a day, twice a day, every couple days, whatever. He is totally involved in this process and dedicated to making awesome shit. So follow that video, and then at the end of that video and taking pictures of things that go wrong in Windows PowerShell, you will get to this point where I have two icons right here. I have my Setiastro Suite Pro and I have my launcher icon. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to run the update icon. You can see that it just pulled in a little bit of updates and stuff. I'm going to click any key to enter. And now I am just going to click on this one and launch Setiastro Suite Pro. Now I am not a pro at this. I am literally still learning. So I am learning with you, but I am going to dedicate a lot of time over the next couple months to try to see how I can get the results out of this that I am getting or close to out of PixInsight. I really want to see how far we can push this free, amazing astronomical program that really just does so much more than we could ever hope for. So we've got the program launched here. The first thing, of course, you're going to have is your entire program window. You can see I've got my tiles kind of arranged in a different way. Frank has videos that goes over all of this stuff. And, I'm just kind of scratching the surface here. So one of the first cool things to look for right here is this command search. And so if you're looking for anything and you're having trouble finding it up here in the toolbox, you could just type in things over here and it'll automatically find it for you, and then you can select it. First thing you want to do is your view. You can go through and set up all the different views that you want to do. And then, of course, you can like move this stuff around to like different spots and all that kind of stuff. And it'll save it and all that kind of stuff. So, really cool, simple, easy to use. But the first thing we need to do is go to settings and preferences. And this is where you're going to get like your true power and stuff in Setiastro Suite Pro. So if you have Graxpert installed already, it's kind of the same thing with Cyril. You need to tell it where Graxpert is installed. If you have StarNet installed, you also want to tell it where StarNet is installed. You will need to download his Cosmic Clarity if you want to use any of those features and tell it where that is installed as well. And if you plan on using plate solving and stuff, you will want to do the same thing with ASTAP. There's videos on how to do this stuff as well. So get all of this stuff set up and running, and that way your life will be a lot easier. I have high quality auto stretch also clicked here. It seems to just maybe make the images look a little bit nicer. And I will tell you that the one thing, and I don't know why it does it, but things just look a little bit different in Setiastro Suite. Things do look a little bit different in Setiastro Suite Pro than they do in PixInsight. And I don't know if it's just the way that things are colored or layered or modeled or whatever, but it's just a fact of the matter. So this Wizard Nebula is what I built inside of PixInsight the other day. This is 26 hours off of my C-Star S50 that lives at STARFRONT observatories. So you can see that we were able to kind of like resolve some details and coloring going along here in the background. We did all of the cool HDR kind of effects and stuff like that, played with different color palettes and all that kind of stuff. So that is kind of the image that we are trying to get to. I have not yet tried to get to this kind of an image yet in Setiastro Suite Pro, and we will not be trying to get to that kind of an image because I think I used some pretty advanced stuff to do that in PixInsight, and probably more than what you will want to do here. So it's just like anything else. Let's get started here. So we're going to go to File, and we will open up our Wizard Master, and I am going to open the one that is not cropped. So that way we can just basically go from there, and we will do this one right here. And whether you stack these in PixInsight or wherever, it really doesn't matter because you'll be just fine. And now both images are open. We'll go ahead and close out the auto crop that we don't need this. First thing to notice is that when you're working on images, especially when we separate our stars images, is to make sure that you are always dealing with the blue highlighted image. So that is something very important to think about. So we can stretch our windows out, we can move things around, we can open multiple windows and keep them all in here. We can minimize these and they will go down into like a little tray right here. And then you can just simply click on it to bring it back up. The first thing we'll do is we will click on the display stretch right here, and that's going to give us a stretch. And if we click on this little drop down right next to it, you can see that we can do a link stretched, or we can do a hard stretched, or whatever. So right now we are doing an unlinked RGB stretch, and I'm going to click fit right next to it just to kind of make it a little bit bigger. So hopefully you guys can see that a little bit bigger. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to do is kind of like following the same kind of processing steps that I do inside of PixInsight. The workflow matches kind of, but there's also some things that don't work. So the first thing I want to do is crop my image. So I'm going to click on the little crop icon, and it's going to bring up the crop preview. Now, one thing that kind of annoys me, especially now that I'm getting old, is that I kind of need to make things just bigger. So if there's one thing that if I could ask Frank to do, it would be to either maximize these or give us a button that would just blow this thing up like right away so we don't have to stretch everything out. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So to go ahead and crop, it's pretty simple. You just drag and pull down. And I always try to find and make sure that I'm not like crossing or cutting off any kind of weird stars or anything like that. And we'll just kind of go with that one right there. And you can see it applies like a super stretch, so it's easier for you to see. So we'll go ahead and click apply. It did that. And at the same time, it's awesome that he put stuff like this in there. It automatically updated the astrometric solution. So now we don't have to go through and waste our time and like plate solve it again and all that kind of crap. So very nice. So now that that is done, what I would do in PixInsight is I would do like the correct only type of thing with the actual aberration type of thing with Blur Exterminator. I would also maybe go after the colors first. Now, since this is an actual narrowband image shot with the light pollution filter, that is the first thing that I am going to do. So I'm going to go up here and click on functions. And what I am looking for is actually right here in Smart Tools, the aberration correction. That's what I'm looking for. So let's correct our aberrations. And this is the thing that was built. This is Ricardo's aberration inspector or corrector, whatever. It's built into Cyril now and everything else. I guess he was part of the Graxpert team. I'm not sure, but does a good job. So go ahead and just run that. And that is just going to clean up the image, make the stars a little bit smaller, and just correct all of our aberrations. So has a nice effect. Also kind of changes like the color, as you can see. Like we can click on the display stretch and, you know, we've kind of left with a different kind of a color balance. So I'm not sure why some of this stuff happens and why it doesn't. I'm not used to that happening inside of PixInsight. Usually when I use BlurX and correct only, it just clips off the stars and stuff and we're good. So this is where we're at right now. By the way, we can also go ahead and I believe, how do we just rename something? So I don't know how to rename. Is there a rename tab somewhere? Like I would like to change this name. I don't know how to do that. So that's some of the things that we need to figure out. And I'm not going to waste my time and you guys trying to figure it out here. I'm sure I will figure it out at some point. So a lot of these functions up here are buttons or they're up here. I go back and forth because I'm still learning on what to do. You can also drag some of these off and make like shortcuts and all that stuff, but whatever. So the next thing I want to do is I want to do a linear fit. And the linear fit is basically just going to align all of the channels so that way we can do a proper linked stretch and see what we are dealing with. So we'll click on OK. And we can see that our color balance changed again. And now if we wanted to get fancy and look at our histogram, we can see that all of our channels should be linked now. So I just click the histogram and then we can scroll over here and we can see that all of our channels are pretty much linked together there. So we can close that up. And then at this point, I think probably the best thing to do is let's try to do a little bit of star reduction. And I have tried using Cosmic Clarity on this to get this to work, but Cosmic Clarity seems to just kind of have a fit with C-star data. Maybe it works better in nonlinear or linear, but I just want to show everybody just so that way you know what you are dealing with. And, you know, we're not, maybe Frank will see this and give us a better way to just kind of do things. So I'm going to just do sharpen and we'll use the GPU. We are just going to we'll do both. Now we have auto detect PSF on, so it's going to find the correct point spread function for us. We can turn down the non-stellar a little bit. I mean, I don't really need to go crazy for me right now. And we can turn down the actual size of the stars too, to see if that maybe makes a little bit difference. The last time I've done this, I just got really weird looking results. So let's see what happens this time. Okay, that wasn't actually too bad that time. That looked actually really well. So we can do a couple things if we want to look at some stuff. We can control and mouse in, and then we can go back and forth and we can see the changes that it made. So in some areas, it kind of brought out some more noise, and then in some areas it didn't, but it definitely made a good enough job for me. Now, recently, Frank has actually came out with the region of interest as well. So if I believe you can click right here and we can just draw like a little box, and then that basically, that little box has became our image, and we've got the full size and the preview. And if we want to, we can drag that preview off, I thought, and make ourselves a completely new image. I might have to actually watch that back again to see exactly what it does. But he's got a before and after built into here as well. So anything that you want to apply to the preview, we can do. So if we want to go back and try to push cosmic clarity a little bit harder, let's go back to where we were, and we're all learning together on this. So we can bring cosmic clarity back up. This is probably going to be a long video just because, like, I'm learning, you're learning, everything else. And I don't want to make just some perfect video for everybody without seeing me make mistakes and everything else, because I think that just kind of takes away from it. So let's do this right now, just on the preview. And we're on the active view here. Well, actually, it's going to do it on the entire thing. Let's just execute it. So again, it's just stuff to me that's second nature in PixInsight because I've been doing it for so long. But in Setiastro Suite Pro, it's a little bit more difficult for me. So now I'm starting to see some ringing and stuff going around the stars here. So I think we pushed it a little bit too far. So let's go back and let's just go ahead and go with the cosmic clarity that we did before. Okay, there we go. No ringing or nothing else like that. So let's get rid of this preview box that I obviously don't know how to use, and let's fit this back into Zoom. But we can see the definite before and after as far as cleaning everything's up. So definitely like that. Now at this point, let's go ahead and let's pull our stars. So we're going to be using StarNet. This is one of the things that I know that my little minus star button is right here that I can click. And now you can use either StarNet or his Dark Star. I found that StarNet still is superior to Dark Star. I would love for Dark Star to get better, but I'm sure Frank doesn't have tons of time to dedicate to like training it over and over because he's so busy doing other things. But I'm definitely convinced that it will get there one of these days. Okay, so StarNet is done, and it did a great job removing the stars. Obviously, there's like some blemishes and stuff like that that's going around here. Some people hate this stuff, and they will use like Frank's blemish blaster to go ahead and get rid of this kind of stuff. I don't mind like a lot of the star glow. I think it kind of adds to the image in some points, and we can also get rid of that stuff down the road. And then our stars are over here as well. And, if we do a display stretch on them, they're going to look horrible, which is fine. So we'll just go ahead and we will minimize those down here in the corner. So important thing to do here, make sure you're back on your blue active image here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run some type of background extraction. Now it's up to you whether you want to run Frank's ABE, if you want to run Graxpert, whatever you want to do. I am going to run Graxpert because I'm sure a lot of people have it and maybe they enjoy using it. I also find that it just kind of works out a little bit better with this actual like type of C star data. And when it comes to the smoothing factor, it's kind of up to you, you know, like you can go full bore. We can try that out and see how that looks. And that looks fine. There's pretty much just a linear gradient that goes from top to bottom on this because I did shoot through some of the moon to get it there. So I am all good with that. So at this point, I think what we can do is we can actually do a linked stretch because we have done our linear fit. We've done our background extraction. We are pretty much like ready to go at this point. Now, some people would like to run denoising at this point. It's just not the right move that I found, especially when using like Graxpert denoise and everything. I find that it works a lot better after you do your stretch. So let's just turn off the display stretch and let's go to stretching. And under stretching is functions. We can do and start off with the base statistical stretch, which works just fantastic. Now you can do a preview again to take a look at everything. So let's make this bigger so we can actually see a little bit better as far as what we are looking at. And we can do a preview of a 0.25, which is bringing out some of the faint and fuzzy stuff. But of course it also is, lightening everything up a little bit. So maybe if we go down to a 0.20, that looks a little bit more reasonable. We can link the channels and preview it again. That's going to kind of like adjust our color palette a little bit different. The other way actually that we can do this too is we can close this and we can go into his amazing perfect palette picker. And I believe this wants to do the statistical stretch before it actually will do it. So we can load in our view, and these are the views that we have. We want to load in the non-star view and click OK. And what it's going to do is we can say create palettes, and it's going to create all of our different fun color palettes for us to play with and apply the statistical stretch at the same time. So if we want to take a look at like an HOO palette and we zoom out, like that's basically the color palette it's going to create for us. Or if we want to look at say 4-ax, which 4-ax is always pretty cool to play with, that is what it would be doing for us. We can do the realistic. I think we are going to do just the regular HOO because I think that is the most appropriate right now. So we can't change the actual amount of the stretch. So it just kind of is what it is. So we are going to say, go ahead and push final to a new view. So at this time it will, we're allowed to adjust the intensities. So let's zoom out here, fit the preview. And let's see, we can turn down the HA, we can turn it up, we can turn up the O3. Now, if we turn up the S2, that's just probably not going to do much for us, but you never know. And that looks good enough for me right there. So we'll just go ahead and click accept. And then we can close that. And there is our stretched perfect palette picker view. And there is our display stretched. So pretty much the same thing. Doesn't look a whole lot different. We can go ahead and park that down here in the corner. And this is what we will play with. And we'll go ahead and fit that view. So right now what we need to do is we need to do some curves work so we can work on this stuff. So there is a curves utility that is built into here. We will go into curves editor, and you can do the same thing where you can kind of hover over your image and figure out where everything is at. We pretty much know that we just need to pull down the dark areas a little bit here, and we can apply that. And then it's going to reset everything. This is how we're looking over here right now. So let's try pulling that down just a little bit more. Double click, pull that down a little bit more. Just incrementally breathe things down. Maybe now we want to just pull up on everything in general and then maybe pull down a little bit right here. Try to bring out some of that wispy stuff without killing it. Not too bad. All right, so we got ourselves a little bit of contrast going on here now. So let's denoise this thing, and we'll go ahead and use the denoise feature built into Graxpert. I think it just works a little bit better with C-star data right now than Frank's does. And I believe we have to go full bore. So it's just kind of the way it is. Let's click on OK. All right, and that looks good. It definitely cleaned things up. I'm pretty happy with the way everything looks in there. Detail doesn't look too bad. I can definitely live with the way that that is looking. So let's do some masking. Let's try to make one mask on this. So the best way Frank, of course, says to do a mask is let's just do an actual luminance mask. Now you can pull the image off and just do this right here like this. And then I think if you take this and apply it over top of the image somehow. Yeah, see, I gotta like really figure this stuff out because it will just make life a lot easier. There's a way that he shows how to do it that we'll learn how to do it eventually down the road, but I don't want to make this tutorial super duper long. So let's just go to his masks and we'll go to create masks. So we can either do a freehand where we draw things around, or we can do the real easy thing to do, which is select the entire image. And then we are going to want to do a binary type of mask. And we want to do like a range selection. And this is the range selection preview. Man, this stuff is so small. There's just got to be a better way to do this. So you can link your upper and lower limit together and all that kind of stuff. You can invert things. So I want to basically just create a mask that's going to cover pretty much just the actual like nebula and stuff itself. So let's go ahead and click on preview mask, zoom out, fit. There we go. Okay, so that looks good. That looks good. And we will click on the blur. We'll blur it a little bit. Okay, that's good. Get rid of that. And then click on OK. And it's just called mask 1. So there is our mask. So how do we apply this mask now? I think we just drag and drop it. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so show mask, mask overlay. So now everything is masked. So this stuff is all protected and everything in the background is the stuff that is not protected. So let's go back into our curves and we will go ahead and just, nope, we got to select this one. This is the view that we want right here. Always gets me every time. There we go. So now we can pull down on our background. There we go. So we can clean up a lot of that nasty stuff that's in the background and make our background nice and dark. So we'll go ahead and apply to document. So it made the adjustment, but it said there was some kind of error. So I don't really know what's going on with that. So let's invert this mask now. So now we're getting more errors. We'll just go ahead and click through them. It is what it is. So masks, we don't need to see it anymore. So we'll hide the mask. Let's go back into curves editor. And then let's try to just bring up the contrast on this entire nebula a little bit. Okay, nice and bright without being overly bright. Apply to document. And it did the change, but it's giving me errors, whatever that is. Let's do a little bit of saturation boost. So let's just double click and let's pull up on the saturation of the nebula itself. All right, that's looking good. Let's apply that. And we can close that out. And this is how we are looking right now. So we've got some nice color. We've got some decent detail and stuff going on. Nothing too crazy that things look like. So I think we're good. So let's go ahead and just remove the mask. And now the mask is gone. Let's close the mask and get it out of our face. And let's try doing just a little bit of sharpening and doing some stuff. So let's just do the basic wave scale HDR. And this is one of those things where you can start playing. It's showing you right now where it is going to apply all of that kind of stuff. So we can fit this to the preview. Here's the mask that it's going to use to apply everything. And you can just kind of like start running this like however you want to. Like you could run a preview, but again, since the preview is so small, it's really hard to like see everything unless you start zooming in. So show original or preview. So you can see that is just giving us a little bit more of a detail and stuff and not washing things out as much as stuff was. So I'm pretty happy with that. Let's just go ahead and apply that to the document. And now we just give ourselves a little bit of extra resolution inside there. So all in all, things are looking okay. I'm pretty happy with the way that that is looking. And let's go ahead and just work on finishing this image now. So let's pull up our stars. So here's our stars. We can get rid of our stretch. And this is pretty much like some of the magic that I just love. We can do this a few different ways. We can do the combine method. We can do the layers method, whatever. We're going to keep it easy here. And we are going to do his star stretch. I am going to stretch my stars out pretty big just because I don't mind it. So we'll go to about we'll go to about a 7. And then I really like jacking the color up on my stars because I just love colorful stars. So we can preview everything right there. Maybe that is a little too aggressive of a stretch because we're bringing out like a lot of faint ones in the back that we really don't need to see. So let's preview that again. And a little bit more maybe. Turn down the color boost. Now we can just kind of scroll around and look at the stars and everything. And yep, that looks okay. So we'll go ahead and apply that. And now we have our stars. So this popped up here. We need to get rid of that. So here's our star image and here's our regular image. This worked better last time I combined these two. So let's combine these two images. So we're basically just going to click on the add stars back to image. So we're going to be using the screen. We are going to be using HOO and we are going to be using the stars. We can fit the preview and that is our image. You can also do a blending ratio down here. So if you want your stars to be, a little bit dimmer and not as bright, you can control that down here. So we'll just go ahead and go about right there and click apply. And now we are going to have our image back with stars. So we can go ahead and get rid of that, click yes. And for most people, this here could be your final image unless you wanted to do some additional processing or whatever. But I still want to, again, try this diffraction spike thing. So generate spikes. There we go. It's detecting stars now. So if we zoom in, you can see that it is adding star spikes all over the place. And you can change the spike type as well. We could do James Webb, or we can just do the regular, which it's really hard to see that. I think that says circular or something like that. And then you can also do the spike boost. So you could tell it like how much of an actual spike you want. So let's do this again and see what it does looking like with the James Webb Space Telescope spikes. Whoa, that looks crazy. Okay, definitely don't like that. So let's do a spike boost of 3, regular ones, number of vanes. I think I only want 2 vanes, which would look more like a regular like SCT or Newtonian. We can zoom out, zoom out, zoom out. It looks a little bit overdone. I guess we could like bump that down to 2. I mean, this isn't real science that we're doing here. This is literally just having fun with a kick-ass astronomy processing program. So it is what it is. And let's just go ahead and apply that. And there we go. Check that shit out. We've got star spikes going on in our image off of our sea star. So, you know, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, whatever. We're just learning this program and having fun and all that kind of stuff. So all in all, definitely a learning curve that we have to do. And I think there's a lot more that we can pull out of this. Obviously, we need to learn how much easier it is to do the masking and navigate around everything and how to kind of work around the limitations of not having the exterminators, which honestly do a hell of a lot of work for you. So, you know, but you're going to be another couple $100 to $300 into the PixInsight price on top of what you have already spent. So it's up to you. Like I said, 80% of the view for 0% of the money. Right now, I want to focus on doing a lot of content based around this. Of course, we will be doing stuff with PixInsight as well, just to show you how awesome of the images we can get out of the Sea Star. But I also want to get to that point with Setiastro Suite Pro and help Frank along in his journey. And all of you guys need to do that too. So if you stuck with me this long, you're a trooper. Appreciate all of you guys. Peace.